guy, Duane Davis, was just arrested in Nevada for the murder of Tupac.
What year is it?
Lots to discuss here.
First, Tupac was killed in a drive-by shooting in Vegas back in 1996. That was almost 30 years ago, so how is someone being charged for that now?
Most crimes have a statute of limitations, meaning that the government has a time limit between when the crime occurred and when they can bring charges. If they wait too long and the time expires, the alleged criminal can get off scot-free.
To pick a random example, robbery in Nevada has a 4-year statute of limitations, so prosecutors must file the charges within 4 years. But murder is one of the few crimes that doesn't have any statute of limitations, meaning charges are possible forever.
Anyway, Davis is not actually the alleged shooter here, but prosecutors say that he was in the car involved in the drive-by shooting, and that he orchestrated the entire thing.
In Nevada and many other states, you can be charged with straight-up murder if you just help facilitate it. Interestingly, it seems like Davis screwed himself here and caused the investigation to be reopened again after all these years. He admitted in his recent tell-all book that he supplied the gun used to kill Tupac, and made other incriminating comments in public interviews. Clearly didn't understand the statute of limitations here.
While Davis has been indicted by a grand jury on the murder charge, the actual trial is still forthcoming.
Social media prankster was shot while pranking the wrong guy.
What? Quit thinking about my twinkle. What's that mean? Quit thinking about my twinkle. No. Quit thinking about my twinkle. Get out of my business on top stuff. Stop. Quit thinking about my twinkle. Stop.
So Alan Colley was picking up a DoorDash delivery at the mall when Tanner Cook, the prankster, approached him.
And for whatever reason, shoved his phone into his face, which was playing, "Hey dipshit, quit thinking about my Twinkie."
Colley asked him to stop 3 times before shooting him in the stomach. Colley was charged with several crimes, but claimed self-defense.
And the jury found him not guilty on the 2 most serious charges due to self-defense.
In response to the not guilty verdicts, the prankster had this to say.
The jury's the jury, and we totally respect how our law plays out, and this was the outcome today, and we respect that.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So was the jury right here? Was this actually self-defense? Well, Colley would argue that Cook was much bigger than him and was approaching him menacingly, causing Colley to reasonably believe that he was facing serious and imminent harm.
Now, you might think that's a bit ridiculous, that this was just a stupid and harmless prank, but what you think doesn't matter. In self-defense cases, whatever the jury says goes, and there's no real oversight for what a jury says.
It's totally possible that the jury didn't fully believe the self-defense claim, but just thought that the prankster was so annoying that they didn't want to convict the shooter. If so, the not guilty verdict is still valid.
In this will, a father leaves everything he owns to one of his daughters, while leaving his 3 other children a single dollar. Brutal.
Does he really just hate his kids?
Probably, but there's also a legal reason behind this.
Leaving 3 of his kids a single dollar shows that he didn't just accidentally forget about them. Wills are contested all the time.
Money will do that.
So if he hadn't done this, his kids could have contested the will, arguing that he was maybe old and mentally unsound and just forgot about them. If a court agreed, it could ignore the will and just split the inheritance amongst all the kids.
Now, although the reason behind the single dollar makes sense, it's not actually necessary. You could always just add a clause that acknowledges people you don't want to leave money to. And practically, making an executor actually administer those $1 checks after you die can be pretty annoying.
But it's undoubtedly more of a slap in the face to give someone just a single dollar instead of writing them out of the will entirely.
So if that's your goal, you do you. Another super viral video involving the police in a vroom vroom machine.
A motorcycle.
So the officer here cuts off the biker to pull him over.
I was pulling out of the road. What?
He immediately handcuffs him and pulls him off the bike.
What did I do? You not gonna say anything? Up off the bike. What was I doing?
And then proceeds to search him.
How do you go over
Was this legal?
Well, the answer to that depends entirely on what the biker was pulled over for.
There's a lot of controversy in the comments about that. But using our super fancy Harvard lawyer analytics technology,
Turning up the sound.
the officer says you were going 100. The original video also mentions that the speed limit was 65.
In Florida, where this happened, driving 30 miles per hour over the speed limit can actually be considered reckless driving, which is a misdemeanor punishable by up to 90 days in jail and an arrestable offense.
So what actually happened here is that the biker was technically arrested, meaning that the search performed by the officer here was a search incidental to arrest.
Police don't need a warrant to search you after placing you under arrest.
People are also wondering about the biker not being read his Miranda rights.
Another point that people don't often understand. Police don't need to read you Miranda rights immediately after arresting you. They only need to read them if you're under arrest and they're about to interrogate you. Cue the bootlicker comments. We're just trying to explain the law.
MLB star pitcher Trevor Bauer has just posted this super viral video, which many says shows he's completely innocent of the sexual assault allegations made by Lindsey Hill, and that she actually set him up.
Let's go over all of this, as always, endeavoring to be as factual and unbiased as possible. Back in 2021, Hill accused Bauer of a violent sexual assault. She admitted that the sex started consensually, but that Bauer took it way too far, leading to injuries like these and others throughout her body, even in private areas.
Bauer always adamantly denied any wrongdoing and claimed that the sex, albeit aggressive, was always consensual. After the allegations were made, the MLB suspended Bauer for violating its domestic violence policy.
We emphasize its decision because the MLB is a private organization that can generally make its own decisions without any civil or criminal ruling. That's important here because Bauer has never faced any criminal or civil liability for these allegations.
Hill tried applying for a permanent restraining order, but the court denied it. In the legal world, these types of restraining orders have a lower evidentiary burden than a full criminal case. Put simply, they're easier to win. Hill did not win, and the judge actually stated that she materially misled the court with her filing.
But Bauer also says something misleading in his viral video.
She denied her request for a domestic violence restraining order, and she found that no sexual assault or non-consensual conduct took place.
The judge who denied the restraining order did not explicitly rule that no abuse occurred. Although the judge did discuss how Hill gave initial consent to rough sex due to her text messages saying she wanted all the pain and even wanted to be choked out, and her admission that Bauer complied with safe word, the restraining order was actually denied because there was no evidence that Bauer would harm or even contact Hill in the future.
While all of this was happening, the police completed an investigation and prosecutors declined to file charges. Bauer ended up suing Hill for defamation, which he said he did for a very specific reason. Not for money, but for discovery.
The discovery process in a lawsuit allows people to request things like videos, text messages, and photos, including all the metadata to ensure that nothing's deleted or messed. Parties to a lawsuit must comply with these requests or face serious punishment.
Bauer ended up receiving text messages and one video that he says was deliberately withheld from him during the restraining order process, which, if true, is a serious offense. The text messages are from Hill to a friend saying things like,
"Next victim, star pitcher for the Dodgers. Net worth is 51 mil. Need daddy to choke me out. Being an absolute whore to try to get in on his 51 million.
And then there's the video, which Hill took just hours after the alleged assault. Hill has confirmed in an interview that all of these are real, but says that the texts are taken out of context and that the video is misleading because she was in shock and bruises take time to appear.
Proponents of Bauer say that this shows all of Hill's claims were false and that she ruined his career with him now being forced to play in Japan.
It's worth noting that Bauer is also facing a similar lawsuit from a woman in Arizona claiming sexual assault, who Bauer has countersued for fraud and extortion.
But there's no significant information on that case yet.
Judge in Trump's fraud case is getting a lot of hate for this old video where he talks about something really interesting.
I'm going to say something controversial, even though I'm being taped. Juries get it wrong a lot. That's my own opinion. I have a tool that I can deal with that. It's called jury notwithstanding the verdict, judgment notwithstanding the verdict. I can say there is no possible way that a reasonable jury would have reached that conclusion. It's sort of controversial to overturn a jury.
Now, we're not here to discuss Trump's specific case, or how the whole thing is apparently turning into an episode of The Office. We just want to bring up this concept.
This is a real thing available to all judges that most people don't know about.
Basically, even if a jury finds someone guilty, a judge can step in and say, no, that's not reasonable, overrule the verdict, and find the person not guilty.
Imagine the CEO of a factory pollutes an entire town with some kind of toxic chemical that causes everyone to fart nonstop. And then that CEO's son is arrested for an unrelated drunk driving charge. At trial, which smells terrible, there's actually no evidence of drunk driving. But the jury's so pissed at the kid's dad that they find him guilty anyway.
This is where that judge should step in and say, no, he's actually not guilty. Think of this as the judge's own power to nullify. The purpose here is to prevent against malicious prosecutors and juries.
But importantly, the judge can only reverse a guilty verdict. They can't do anything about a not guilty verdict.